Ready for our first ever trade-off. I'm Corey Wilcox, owner of DSKB. We'll be asking some questions from some industry professionals. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Brandon Nystrom, Vice President of Sales for Mozaik Holdings.
Tell us about like a nickel tour of how long you've been in the industry and kind of the different places that you've worked in the flooring industry.
So I have been in the industry for about 13 years, on my fourth stop, but the other stops are a variety of distribution, manufacturing, supply of an array of flooring products throughout the country.
Many of the questions I'm going to ask are going to be kind of maybe catered towards designers of the industry. What are the biggest mistakes that you would see people making when they're choosing different flooring products?
I think the two of the hardest, I don't know if I'd call them mistakes, but hardest things for both the designers and for everybody to kind of recognize is the right flooring for the right application. And then when it comes to the designer side, budgets is probably the biggest question that we face from the other levels where just certain products aren't going to fit in certain budgets.
Can you give me, I'm going off script a little bit here, but can you give me a couple of examples of what a right product in a right location might look like?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're sitting in a beautiful room here with engineered hardwood, and that's going to be hardwood is going to be one of those products that the wear is very relevant and very visual once over time. If you're in a commercial or a higher traffic setting, or little kids, dogs, multifamily, those types of areas, that can be really difficult to keep the product looking up to par for a long period of time.
I'm going to kind of cue you up a little bit because I want this question to go in the right direction. But what should customers that are buying flooring know about expansion joints and underlayment and humidity levels or temperature changes and all of those kind of things depending on the product that they choose?
When it comes to those specific criterias, it's difficult because those are probably some of the bigger challenges we face for the industry. So big challenge from the design side and from the speccing side is that just having the right application for the right product. So it kind of goes back to it a little bit. But when you have a lot of moisture, certain products aren't going to work. When you have a lot of heat or when you have a lot of wear and tear, they're just not going to work the same as, whether it's an entry level product, whether it's a certain type of material. Even when you get into the world of carpet, which is not my world, you have wool versus polys that are going to react differently to the different environments. So
I want to ask another question related more to our market. Colorado is a unique market, as a lot of people know. It gets extremely wet during certain times of the month as far as humidity goes, and then extremely dry at other times. What do people need to be aware of when installing any of the flooring products that maybe they haven't thought about?
I mean, yeah, to your point, and I would say it leans a lot more towards the dry, but we do occasionally have the rainstorms, just like the last couple of weeks, that do add a lot of that humidity in. But predominantly, we are one of the drier climates and lowest relative humidity. And when you have that, the different products are going to react very differently. And so it's what we in the industry, verbalize as acclimating the product and giving it a little bit of time, knowing where it's going to live after it's installed and having it live in that same environment. That's going to allow the product to perform, much better.
This is kind of a hard question, but when you're looking at flooring choices of all the categories, maybe you could kind of cover some of the categories that people have to choose from. Which ones create the most maintenance issues through the life of the floor?
So first touching on categories, I think one of the first biggest delineations is soft surface versus hard surface. As I just mentioned, like not as much of an expert in the soft surface items, but then in hard surface, some of the main categories are, tile, all the vinyl different products, whether it's sheet, LVT, cut into planks, laminates, hardwoods, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two, but that kind of gives you the broad spectrum. And when it comes to durability, like they all react differently given what application they're being used for. And so some items like a hospital or a school or an apartment building are going to need very different maintenance instructions than a nice home or a you know cabin in the mountains, and so therefore your maintenance is just completely different. So um, to identify different maintenance for different categories or which ones cause the most is very relevant to the situation. Schools and VCT take polishing all the time, cleaning and polishing, which are expensive machineries, lots of chemicals. Whereas, you put some of the more what we kind of call bulletproof products in residential homes, in the vinyls and the laminates, in a normal home, if you're, vacuuming and Swiffer mopping regularly, that's pretty minimal maintenance. And so it just kind of depends on where you're at.
Are there finishes or materials that age better in high traffic areas? I think you kind of just answered that in the
Yeah,
last
I mean,
question.
absolutely, right? And that's going to take different material. I think at the end of the day, tile and the different versions of tile are going to be the longest lasting with the least amount of maintenance per se, but it's also the most expensive to get a high quality, high variant, great visual, and most expensive install cost to be able to have that application. So it's all relative to what the budget works with.
Are there any sustainable or eco-friendly flooring options available?
I mean, that might be one of my favorite parts of what we're doing right now, considering everything you've got going on in the world is, plastic this, plastic that. And while the vinyl products and the SPCs, WPCs, all these different, which we have a huge part in with the company where we're at right now, those plastic products are not eco-friendly at all. We all know that. And so um, in our world, we look at as laminate and some of the hardwood products as being the most eco-friendly, but the laminate products, good ones, are made out of recycled material for the cores. We're now even having and we're coming out with eco-friendly padding on the back, whereas for a long time those have been plastic pads as well. And now you're getting we call it more of a corrugated cardboard type padding on the back that is fully eco-friendly as well. And so you've got a fully recyclable product to be able to offer people. And because of printing and different things, their visuals are catching up to everything else out there as well.
Um, this is a loaded question, so I'm going to ask you just to kind of cover the surface things. What are potential challenges or considerations that may arise during installation?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I think one thing we look at is whether it's new construction, a new build for a big building, or a remodel, every single job site is different. And so every single one can have different challenges and different, things that come up. But at the end of the day, I think some of the things that plague the flooring side of things the most would be moisture, uneven surfaces, and making sure the right product is being applied to the right surface. As in, you don't want to use a glue that doesn't work with plywood or OSB on a plywood or OSB substrate. You don't want to use a glue that doesn't work with concrete if you're going on a slab on grade or some sort of gypcrete type substrate. So there's those, just having each job site's parameters kind of met, but ultimately moisture and the type of substrate might be two of the biggest.
Uh, I think as time progresses, people are becoming more and more conscious of healthy living and even like a spot home, and they want to make sure that the materials that are installed in their house are going to be as good for them as they possibly can for manufacturing and everything. Are there certifications or labels that indicate any flooring material is environmentally friendly?
There are, and there's a lot of different challenges that come with those labels. Some of the big ones are Carb 2, Green Guard, Floor Score certified, but ultimately some of those certifications come with chain of custody of the product as well. And so I believe, it's my belief, that some of that really stems from who you're buying it from and counting on, a specialist in the industry. So we're obviously big on flooring dealers who are specialists in what they do, to be able to identify that this product is going to be not only best for your health and the environment that it's going into, whether it's off gassing, whether it's the glue that's used, whether it's all these different parts and pieces, but also that it's the right product.
Um, I'm going to skip some of these questions and go to a different one first so that we don't end on a negative. But to ask you somewhat of a negative question, what is something that you see specified either by designers or GCs or even dealers that you sell to that you just wish that they would completely stop picking and choosing, that's maybe making you want to pull your hair out?
I think ultimately it comes down to, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's two prongs to it, where it's the ultimate product that does not fit with inside a budget. So the cost is just so prohibitive that it makes everybody down the line have to scramble so much to get a like product or a similar color to go with all the other visuals that have been specified to match and to go in there. But also on the other end, there's some extremely cheap and entry level products that don't do our industry justice, because they are spec'd or just to get a project in under budget and then create problems for everybody down the road. And so obviously I'm a little biased on which products give us the biggest problems, but it would be the two ends of the spectrum when it comes to cost and association.
In the reverse of that, and to be a little bit more positive on the question, what are you seeing as like current trends and things that are becoming really popular, or things that maybe are just getting started that are going to become popular that maybe people don't know about yet?
I think ultimately, style and design is obviously the easiest one to comment when it comes to trends, but it's a little bit more fun to talk about, the movement away from some of the plastics and back into items like the waterproof laminates or the waterproof PVC free flooring that we have, that are options out there. And even though they have a negative connotation from 15, 20, 25 years ago, they're my favorite products to sell at this point, because they are the digital printing and the colors and the prints and the multiple films used in one option, are in one box, ultimately are giving people a more realistic and affordable bang for your buck product that also is very durable, and like I said, stems away from that waterproof flooring, plastic floor. And so there's absolutely applications for the plastic and the vinyl floors, but it doesn't need to be everywhere. And so having some of those other options, and it really comes down to the trend of the printing on some of these products, and even on the vinyl and plastic floors, the printing is getting so good that it makes those floors almost as realistic as a hardwood floor, which is one of the beauties behind hardwood.
So that kind of leads me to my next question: is we have people, and I was one of them for a long time until I worked in the flooring industry, where if it's not a real thing, if it's not porcelain tile or marble from the quarry, or it's not real hardwood, I don't want it, because I don't want fake flooring, and I've obviously changed my opinion over the time. But tell us a little bit about cores of material and why they're so good, and then also what makes the printing process so good on the surface that now people maybe can't even tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to um, technology and advancement in an industry as rudimentary as flooring, where we get to apply some of these, waterproofing techniques and different things to some of these different product categories so that you can have the right application and you can have a more durable floor. Because one thing we always know is that wood floorings are not going to be the most durable. And so you have the ability to put an AC5 laminate down, which matches up with a porcelain tile.
I'm gonna stop you just a little bit. You just said AC5, just in case somebody doesn't know what that means. What is AC5?
There's a different ratings for like scratch and durability for the different categories of flooring. And for the longest time, tile has used an AC3, AC4, AC5 type of rating, and laminate floors are actually on that same rating scale. Whereas you have wear layers in a lot of the plastic and vinyl floors. And so ultimately, that AC5 is a rating that, in my opinion, you really can't get to in some of the vinyl and plastics. And so that's why I believe laminate's one of the most durable floors to go with, like a porcelain tile. And so kind of then circling back to the fact that some pretty basic tiles might cost $20 a square foot to install, where you could get a similar durability with an advanced look because of the new technologies in printing on an AC5 laminate for $5 a square foot installed. And so that just kind of helps delineate and make sure you're using the right product for the right budget and the right application. And you mentioned cores, but that's a whole other topic, right? And so they've been able to change up the cores. They've been able to add more core to some of the vinyl and the rigid products become with SPC and WPC and those different things. Helps with sound, helps with thickness so that it can span over different subfloors. And then, laminate has ultimately, they've, what's a word I'm looking for? They've not only made the cores more dense, but they've added different things into the core to make it better and more sustainable and long-term and a better core overall.
The company you work for now is Mozaik. Tell us a little bit about what you do and where you fit into the supply chain of the flooring industry.
Yeah, so as mentioned before, I've worked with the manufacturing side to the supply side, distribution side, and Mozaik. We're a more regional based company that we kind of dabble in all of that. We take it from the start to the finish, and predominantly in the waterproof laminate, the SPC and LVT and glue down type products on the vinyl plastic floor side, and then engineered hardwood. And that's our main categories. So we're Mozaik with a Z and a K, and we don't sell tile.
Where can people find Mozaik online?
So lyrisfloor.com, waterwisefloor.com, and grovefloor.com are our brands, and those are the products that we manufacture and bring in from all over the world to try to bring the right products into predominantly the Rocky Mountain region, because just like we mentioned with environments, the Rocky Mountain region is going to have a different style and a different environment than what coastal states are going to have. And so we really specialize in those type of products in those states.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, you don't even have any left.